we don't just want to be passive observers anymore. We want to do something.
If you see something wrong or something that you feel like you can help, change mindsets. For me, the word change
just means not forgetting the pain and remembering that we just really have to do something about this to make it better.
Climate change is going to have a very big impact on how we live our lives.
So when we talk about a 2030 goal coming very soon,
we also need to do a lot of other things.
To have that political will, individually and collectively, to put theory into action.
So, my name is Dylan. I run the charity organization for Character and Leadership Academy. I focus on youth mental health and leadership development. And part of my other work, I lead the International Football Federation. So I was the former president of Singapore Football, and now I'm now taking on the global roles that focus on the promotion of football around the world.
Hi everybody, I'm Audrey Siu. I'm the Southeast Asia Ambassador for World Without Orphan. I've been working in the vulnerable children's space for the past maybe more than 15 years. So I've taken positions which include at the leadership level of an NGO, overseeing a continuum of services for vulnerable children. I've been working at policy levels, oversight of sectors and doing service development and so on and so forth. So I've been working with kids for many years now.
Hi, I'm Agnes. I'm a designer working in the intersection of healthcare, technology, education, and human experience. My journey began in industrial design, but since my final year in my bachelor studies, I've decided to focus only on industrial design for healthcare because it presents some of the most complex and yet meaningful challenges facing society.
I'd like to actually introduce myself as someone who works at the intersection of people, sustainability, as well as cities. The thing is that I started my career as an architect and I actually went on to development. I was in public healthcare and now in corporate real estate. So a lot of work that I do is actually highly reliant on not just the built environment, but the fact that it has social connections, inclusivity, accessibility, as well as how we can actually put the entire space of the built environment in a more human sense, if I may put it that way. So the core of the things that I do is that I did realize over time that structures or design is not just physical structures. It actually embodies how people live, work and play, to say the least. And it does actually carry certain level of significance, and you can actually improve someone's lives, quite literally, through the built environment.
My name is Danny Loong. I'm 54 years old and run Timber Group. We basically manage food courts, but our food courts are very unique. We have live music, and then Amicus, which is my psycho, legal and coaching business that's more on mental health and also particularly focused on men. We started a movement called Men Too that helps young men as well as older men of all ages how they can get through their difficult times, depression, issues. But the main thing is to get them to speak up, get them to come into our safe spaces to share, which is really something of a challenge and a change of mindsets. And also to get support from the wider society, including women, to understand that men's mental health is important. It's something that we should care about. And then I'm involved in Respect SG, it's an FMB internship.
Operating the cybersecurity space currently and AI governance. But also I come with background and training in legal and policy work. I'm not a technologist in the tech industry, but I am a business leader that wears also that policy lens and the appreciation of the wider business environment that we're operating in.
So my name is Simon Schielebeeks. I'm an assistant professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at Singapore Management University. As part of my research on innovation in the natural world, I ended up co-founding a non-profit organization back in 2018 called Global Mangrove Trust. It works on mangrove restoration. And a year later, at the end of 2019, as part of kind of an outflow of what we were doing with Global Mangrove Trust, I also ended up co-founding a for-profit social enterprise, which is called Handprint.
I'm Lipika Bhattacharya and I work with Singapore Management University. I'm the Deputy Head for the Case Center in Singapore Management University. I'm a proponent of the case method. I'm very passionate about the case pedagogy as a learning tool in higher education. But what I feel in terms of my vision is that I want to propagate it beyond higher education and beyond business schools to other higher education learning as well. And I also teach a lot of smaller schools and diploma schools, the case method, and then I train the trainers. And I also directly teach some students, I coach some students from high schools, from marginalized societies about the case method and how it can change their learning journeys.
I have my first and only child at 50. So he's changed my whole perspective, watching him grow up. And then I start to wonder, what kind of world will he live in 20 years' time when he's 20 years old? Will he be able to find help? Will he be able to seek help? Will he be able to come to me or someone, someone in school to seek help? And I think you need to think about these things, right, for the next generation, not just about your own generation. So that's my inspiration. I think the young generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, I'm more concerned about these two generations because things have changed.
The greatest impact is often not just about dollars and cents, a product or a publication, but it is empowering people to learn new approaches that they previously did not think of, was not trained in, and then they can become change makers themselves. And this is when I thought this is exactly why I do this.
This was a massive natural disaster that had an enormous impact on human life. And what was striking was that the areas where the mangroves had been cut were the areas where most people had died. And I think for both Ryan and I, that story really, hit us, I think, pretty hard. We don't just want to be passive observers anymore. We want to do something.
Seeing people coming a step closer towards a common goal, that completely motivates me, and that is a huge source of encouragement for me, and that really drives that passion.
Well, the thing that I really enjoy the most is the fact that I can actually effect change, positive change. We can actually change something for the better, and it actually helps improve not just lives but your bottom line. I think that really excites me. It's something that I love putting into every day.
And it starts with having a deeper understanding of the pain that children had to go through because they live in very difficult circumstances in their families and then have to be removed from their families because of their safety or whatever reason it might be. So I guess being a change maker really, to me, just means not forgetting the pain and remembering that we just really have to do something about this to make it better.
For every $1 they spent on planting trees, they had $6 additional revenue. So this was a very strong proof point that this can really work. The idea was, how do we identify, source, monitor, and validate very high quality impact projects across a wide variety of impact types: mangrove restoration, coral restoration, ocean plastic cleanup, access to education, food, water, energy, like the whole sustainable development. So that was one thing. And then how do we help companies capture value from this? And our central thesis really became that companies can capture value from the creation of positive impact in the world if they can embed this commitment into how they interact with their customers. And so by doing that, the company would actually tell the customer something that, hey, we are doing something nice for the world, for whatever, for people. And we're doing this at a moment when we are interacting with you in the hope that this is going to change your behavior. Right? And so one of our very early stage kind of successful implementations of this was in e-commerce. So we worked with an Australian company, a sports brand, and they integrated this kind of capability into their checkout process. Right? So you have a sports store that has a checkout that says, hey, if you're buying today, we are gonna give some money to tree planting. And what was great with them is that we could set it up as an A/B test, a classic thing you do in design to figure out which design is more successful. Right? And so we ran it for 2 weeks. But we ran 50% through the original website, 50% of visitors to the enhanced website, between brackets, where you had a tree counter on the front page and where you had a message that said, like, if you're buying this product, we are donating, or we're giving 1%, or I think it was 1%, to reforestation in Australia. And we found 16% increase in sales on the website where the tree planting plugin was implemented. And for that company, that meant that for every $1 they spent on planting trees, they had $6 additional revenue. So this was a very strong proof point that this can really work.
Leadership is about creating conditions where diverse expertise can come together to solve problems that no single individual could solve alone. So, trained as a designer, I often act as a translator between disciplines, and my role really is to help each group understand the shared perspectives of each other, the values, and aligning everyone around a common purpose. And when people feel heard, respected and connected to a common mission, that's where collaboration becomes significantly more effective. And equally important is creating psychological safety. Team members should feel comfortable in raising concerns, challenging assumptions, and sharing new ideas. They must feel that they are articulating in a very safe space. And innovation then thrives when people feel trusted.
The real estate or the built environment sector accounts for nearly 40% of global emissions today. And one thing that is quite important in the work that I do is I help entities, I help clients, I help organizations relook at their assets, real estate assets, their portfolio level, or even at cities level, really depending on where they are. And the good news is that, apart from, say, improving energy efficiencies within their buildings or portfolio, there are other mitigation methods that we can actually do, such as we actually improve well-being and experience of the tenants and users. We are also looking at uplifting the building to make sure that it's relevant for time to come. Because some buildings, they are built 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the use may have changed, right? Times have changed. We have all changed. So instead of really pulling that building down, if we can actually reposition it, future-proof it, and make it for a better use, we're not just saving the planet, saving carbon, but we're also saving dollars here. And that really helps clients rebuild their portfolios and make their assets in a better way. So in short, there is actually quite a fundamental shift in thinking these days. So in the past, we used to think about very short-term gains, right? Short-term website. But today, we are really looking at a more life cycle, systemic thinking, where we no longer see something at the point in time, but we see a longer term, we take a longer term view on how we actually do things.
Well, World Without Orphans is actually a movement that cuts across, or right now, over 90 countries. A lot of people are wondering what collective impact means. If you think about it, there are many, many people in this world and in Southeast Asia even, actually having wonderful hearts, burning passion for vulnerable children, but they're all contributing in their own ways to vulnerable children, and they're going this way and that way and all that. Everybody is doing their thing. But you look at it, all the arrows are pointing all over, right? And sometimes some of them overlap. So actually collective impact and the movement, what our BWO movement tries to do is to get everybody, pointing the arrows in the same direction, so together we can do more. You see, when the problem is very big, no one person or organization, no matter how amazing and how talented, can actually solve the problem, right? So the only way to solve big problems is really when we get people working together. And with that, we got a good chance.
And I always tell people that I am very intentional about creating psychological safety for people to disagree with me, for people to debate ideas, for people to make fresh suggestions. of doing things, the same old things anyway, right? And then there's always a platform, that psychological safety to discuss these things. But I constantly feel that people need to be empowered, and every single person's views has to be validated as well. So for me, there's one personal thing I do, which is that for every single person in my teams, I make sure I spend time one-on-one with every single one of them. And I always don't just tell them what I hope to see in them and their work in the one-on-one, but I also always unfailingly ask, do you have feedback for me? Of course, they'll sheepishly say, oh, no, I don't have, you know, they are very shy about it, but they've also come to a point where they will be very candid with me, because I think they see that if you're sincere, then they too, I think it's mirroring. People reflect the energy you give them. Well, a big part of my work these days are to do with people, whether behind closed doors where you and I don't, other people don't see it, because I could be lobbying or discussing or giving my input on certain policy issues to the respective countries, or being consulted privately on those things. And the other part of it would be a little bit more public facing, which maybe more people have come to know of me, which is, maybe some of the thoughts I've been putting out in my keynotes by public speaking, or even in the media, right? I've been frequently asked for opinions. So I think a big part of my work is about raising the awareness on topics which I feel people need to be aware about. And I see myself as that storyteller. For me, I love telling stories, and I think because it's really through stories that people get the point better. It's no point giving principles when people don't understand how it can be applied. So I love telling stories, and sometimes these stories stick, and people will remember the story. And then by remember the story, they remember the meaning behind it.
I get chills when I have people who meet at Timber, get married, have children. My musicians, for example, some of them meet at Timber and then get married and have children. So you've seen them through 21 years, and they sometimes come back and say hi. That gives me a lot of joy. Say, hey, I used to come to Timber. Hey, I met my wife at Timber. You know the sitcom, How I Met Your Mom? Exactly, Timber is like that, 21 years. We had a place where young people came. Those days were SMU students, right? Came, a lot of NUS students too. And I'm not so sure about NTU, probably a few of them. But they all come, they all enjoy the live music, they socialize, they joke, they laugh, watch the bands. And we were a home for music. But there were a lot of young people that came, and now they are all grown up, working and having kids. So when I hear stories like that, it makes me feel really glad. Yeah. So I appreciate that. I kind of miss that actually. We need to bring that back. Socializing and having fun and having places like that.
Moments that I always feel that I'm proud of, and I feel that it's done well, is where beneficiaries coming to you years later, coming to you to thank you for the work that we have done 5-6 years ago. Likewise, when I with Chuball, when I took over Chuball about 6-7 years ago, there was a real need, not just in the fundraising component, but also structurally in terms of how we manage our governance. Governance takes a long time. When I first started law, when I started implementing new policies, people may not be comfortable. But if I believe that what I set up, it is good for the future, not just about the present, but for the future, then people will see it. And today, our athletes enjoy the fruit of the day. Meaning, they understand the importance of having good governance, because with good governance, the good structure, people believe in the system. And when people believe in the system, people invest in the system. And when you look at our athletes, I was just sharing that there are athletes that started off when they are in primary school. Today, they are coaches paying forward to other age group. So they became coaches for the under 16, the under 19, the under 22, and they are also national athletes.
All right, so I think my focus as an entrepreneur and as a professor is really on SDG 13, 14, and 15, right? So climate, life on land, life in water. I think it's very hard to disentangle those from other sustainable development goals. Right? So, of course, the energy one, SDG 7, has a very big impact on climate. But even a lot of the work that needs to be done to better protect biodiversity, to better protect nature, to better protect the climate, cannot be done if we are not improving education, if we don't ensure that people have access to sanitation, if we don't improve gender equality. So the things are complex and they're very much intertwined. The most urgent thing that we need to consider right now is the existential risk that bees might not be around anymore in a couple of years. If we really think about like what is the most urgent thing that is going to have the biggest impact on life on this planet, I would say it's bees. Climate change is going to have a very big impact on how we live our lives. Can we travel? Can we move around? Where can we live? Depending on the rising oceans and so on. Biodiversity is going to decide whether we live at all.
The truth of the matter is that there are still many organizations and entities today who view sustainability as a cost versus as a long-term value driver. Yeah. But having said, we do see changes, and or at least I do see changes throughout the years of my career, and that people are also beginning at the same time to realize that being able to achieve certain sustainability ambitions, having ESG performance that are strong is actually not just only good for the environment, but it's also good for the books. So when you actually have a conversation between do well and do good, many a times they do much, and when I would say if the profit line is good, why not do well and do good at the same time? So this is really one of the key things of really looking at how SDG 11 is actually being crafted out. And more importantly, in today's context, right, many things are no longer just in silo. Right? We are looking at very holistic term of what sustainability actually means. So when we talk about a 2030 goal coming very soon, a lot of times it actually falls about what can the individual organization, as well as the city as a whole, as a macro level, actually plan that together. You can't really do that alone.
Two parts to this. I think the lack of governance frameworks and the lack of harmonization of these governance frameworks. The lack of agreements on the parameters of AI governance. It's been so far theoretical, but we're not really seeing a lot of countries sort of taking the lead to come up with comprehensive frameworks. Of course, the EU has set the tone with the EU AI Act, and of course several countries around the world, maybe a handful of them in Asia have stepped up, right? Singapore, of course, is one of them. But I think by and large, it is still neglected. During COVID, you would notice that COVID being a common pandemic problem sort of pushed everyone into this state of digitalization. And so there were sort of like the global economy was thrown into an entire state of disarray because there were no clearly defined rules. When people were digitalizing, they were neglecting cybersecurity, for example. They were digitalizing faster than they were implementing cybersecurity safeguards. And which is why during COVID, you would notice that ransomware attacks were very high. There was a massive spike. Cyber threats were like on the rise. Data leakages were everywhere. So people were actually bad people were actually capitalizing on that weakness to, gain full advantage, right? So I think sometimes the lack of rules, the lack of frameworks, the lack of agreement on what these parameters are, the definition, is actually the fundamental problem. Yeah. And also, you would notice that in most of the platforms where people are conversing about these ideas, it's usually the same old people. Yeah. So then I become your echo chamber and you become mine. And are we really expanding that conversation and bringing new people into the conversation? I'm not so sure.
So I believe one of the most critical challenges is ensuring equitable access to health and well-being across increasingly diverse populations. So healthcare is no longer just treating illnesses or acute conditions, but it is about enabling people to live meaningful, productive, and fulfilling lives throughout their longer lifespans. And we must address the growing gap between medical advances and people's ability to understand them, to assess them, and benefit from them. And this requires us to think beyond hospitals and clinics. Health is influenced by communities, workplaces, education, social support, mobility, technology, and even economic opportunity. So the future of health will depend on our ability to build integrated ecosystems rather than isolated solutions.
I think if you look at the world today, we all know that mental health is one of the rising or emerging risks or emerging concerns. And we read on papers or when we read in the media, I think countries all around the world do struggle or do hope to address the area of mental health, especially in terms of the risk of suicide, right? Depression, guilt, suicide, anxiety disorder. I mean, the mental health is a wide spectrum of. When you want to define mental health, is really a wide spectrum. But for me personally, what is close to me is on due to suicide, and that's why kind of the work that we do in CRA or in Character and Leadership Academy is to look at youth mental health, specifically on youth suicide. And the rates of suicide is somewhat concerning, not just in Singapore, but across the world. So if you ask me about HGD on well-being, I think one of the key things that you should look at is on mental health. While developing countries or developed countries like Singapore has a good healthcare system, I mean, there are countries that have good healthcare system, but I think we need to go beyond just to be in healthcare, but we also wanting the government or the stakeholders around the world to look at well-being and how can we develop a good well-being framework, not just to address mental health issue, but also to look at what are the ways that we can gather other change makers to make a difference in this trip.
You know, a lot of work is being done locally. So the schools are being opened, the education is being provided for free to children from, financially weaker sections of the society. And what happens because of that was that, students attending our classrooms, they get degrees, but they don't really have the knowledge, which is what is happening a lot across the world. That the knowledge is not existing. Even though they achieve an degrees, when they go to work, that knowledge, there's a gap there between the knowledge and the actual application bit. And so the question of quality of education arises, that how can the quality of education be improved? And there are two things to that. One is, of course, the trainers who are training the schoolies. So that's where, the quality needs to be gone. And once the trainers know how to deliver learning, and learning is also important. And the second part of it is, so that's one point. Also, we need to up the skills of the trainers for quality education. The second part is a lot of education is self-learning, and not many educational organizations across the world acknowledge that learning is, of course, what you learn in school is just a fraction of your entire learning journey. Self-learning is a very big part of learning itself. So how do you then equip students to go on that path of self-learning? And those two are very critical in terms of delivering quality education. And so the method that I evangelize, which is the case method, is what I think, one of the pedagogies that can actually improve like self-learning courses. So when students are exposed to stories, to real life stories, to real life challenges, and are asked to think about those, like I said about the open hiring story, when students are exposed to those, and then they are actually asked, okay, this is the theory, this is the framework that we have learned, and now this is what is happening in real life.
Many people believe that they need a grand vision before taking action, but in reality, change often begins with curiosity and compassion. So just pay attention to a problem that genuinely bothers you, listen carefully to the people experiencing it, learn continuously, then take one practical step towards improvement. And remember that you do not need to change the entire world overnight. If you can improve just one person's experience, one community, or one system, you have already begun the journey of a change maker. I often say that innovation requires both hardware and hardware. It's because hardware gives us the capability, but the hardware gives us meaning. So hardware is where things like empathy, trust, ethics, culture, relationships, and understandings forms all of it. And these are the invisible types of factors that determine whether people will embrace the solution or reject it. And the future will not belong to those who simply build the most advanced technologies, but it will belong to those who care how to integrate this technology excellence with human wisdom.
George Bernard Shaw, an economist, said, reasonable people try to adapt themselves to the environment. Unreasonable people try to adapt the environment to themselves. That is why all progress depends on unreasonable people. But if you really want to do something meaningful in this field, you have to be unreasonable, because you basically have to believe that whatever everyone else is doing is not good enough.
One does not need to have a lot of resources to become a change maker, and one does not need a team to become a change maker necessarily. One does not need a nation to become a change maker. No, I can start. I can become a change maker in my very own place just by myself. I would give the example of Mother Teresa, who was a teacher in school, or Loreto Convent, from where I did my high school. She left her job because she saw people suffering from leprosy on the streets. And she started on her own. She started attending, because nobody would want to feed those people on the streets. Nobody would want to take them there. She started bringing them to her own little place where she was living and serving them. And she started her journey herself. And then, of course, when other people saw the value in that trend, they turned her, and then she formed this association of sisters who tried to help patients suffering from leprosy. You can start it yourself, and that's where change can happen in very small steps.
In that breakout exercise with my team, I was basically telling them to look at the same products with fresh lens. It's really about making positive changes by constantly being curious and by constantly challenging your own assumptions. And I also told them, you may be dealing with these products for the longest time already, but try to broaden your mind.
Sometimes we are very comfortable with norms, but sometimes we do need to challenge the norms to ask ourselves, how can we make things better? And I always believe that as leaders, we need to begin with the end in mind. What is the angle they have in mind? What is the vision they have? I think leadership without vision, without action, is just a dream. But I think it's important to dream, but that dream must come with some level of direction and some level of action. When you are in the position of leadership, you are in a position of influence. Some people may say that when you are in a position of leadership, you are in a position of authority of power. But I choose to look at power as a way of influencing people around it. Whether it's stakeholders, whether it's the beneficiary themselves, or whether at the government level, when you are on a leadership position with a very clear vision of how you want to help the people that works for you or people that you are benefiting, then you need to use your leadership position to develop this circle of influence. And I think it's through this influence, through the small dialogues that you have with people around you, and getting people to see what you see, so that they believe in what you see, so that people are willing to partake the vision that you have.
We have been awakened for a while now, a very, very long while. Between dreams and awakenings, we've had each other till we finally meet again. I'm standing in between crossroads. apart from each other